Hey there, this is Spanky, the driving dude with all things driving. Thanks for playing today. Oh, we got a good one for you today. We're going to be talking about speeding. I'll just start right out with saying that I taught a traffic school class last night. We had 15 students in it, and 12 of them were there for speeding. One of them was there for cell phone use. Another one was there for running a stop sign, and another one was there for running a red light. I'm going to be talking about all of those in future segments as well. But speeding, huge issue on U.S. roads. In fact, here's the latest stat for you. Let me back up here. Here we go. 49% of speeding drivers in fatal car crashes in 2017 were not wearing a seatbelt. Isn't that crazy? With the seatbelt laws, with just common sense, almost one half of all the drivers who were killed while speeding were not wearing the seatbelt. It's nuts, I'm telling you. Let's see, I got another stat for you here. Out of those, let's see, in 2017, speeding killed 9,717 people, accounting for more than 26% of the traffic fatalities that year. In fact, let me tell you this really quick. Another stat here. Back in the 50s and 60s on American roadways, we had in the average of 50,000 Americans dying every year in car crashes. And it took us decades to get all the way down to about 32,000 at the end of 2013, somewhere between 32 and 33,000. Well, since 2013, it's been on an uptick now, and obviously we know cell phones are directly involved in those fatalities, but speeding is still a huge factor. We still have a huge problem with that, and most of the people who come through our traffic school classes were speeding. In fact, here in our county, we've had, I believe, 3 teen deaths that I know of in the past year or so on our roads. None of them were on the interstates. They were all on back roads, and in all 3 cases, they were speeding. And in 2 of the 3 cases, I know for a fact that they were on roads that they were familiar with, driving those same roads for a year, 2, even 3 years. One of them was actually in our driver's ed program 3 years ago. He left our program after the classroom portion and never signed up to do his 3 driving lessons. And I kind of, in the back of my mind think, wow, if I had been in the car with him for his 3 driving lessons, I could have pressed into him even more than what we had done in the classroom about the dangers of speeding. But we never had that opportunity. He never came back. And every once in a while, we do have students, they'll finish the classroom portion, and then they just blow off the driving lessons because they think, well, I'm driving with my parents, and, that's good enough. It's a shame. There are 3 reasons that we shouldn't speed. Off the top of my head, I teach this at traffic school. The first reason is you lose very important and necessary stopping distance. Okay, I'll give you an example. If you are driving at 40 miles per hour, you're going to need about 59 feet of processing and reacting time for your brain to work to even tell your foot, you have to get off that gas pedal and hit that brake. Okay, so one is, we lose vital stopping distance when we speed. The second one is you also lose the ability to process multiple things happening at one time. Have you ever driven down the road and maybe you're looking for the name of a business or you're looking for an address and everything's coming so fast because you're obviously, going at a high rate of speed, and then you have to slow down and you're trying to manage the road in front of you, but you're looking to your right or to your left for the name of those businesses or that business or that address. Well, your brain needs time to process all that information. That's why you obviously are slowing down to look for that particular address or business name. So that's the second reason we need to slow down. The third reason, obviously, is because we want to keep our money in our pockets. Why give your hard-earned money away, to the county or the state or the city in the form of having to pay a traffic fine, court costs, and then traffic school as well? That money adds up over time. And why part with your hard-earned money because you went over the speed limit a few miles per hour? Now, I was the guy in my Mitsubishi Eclipse, my 5-speed, on the LA freeway system, the 101 and the 405 and the 5. and I was in the left-hand lane most of the time. The left-hand lane is called the number 1 lane, and then 2, 3, 4, all the way out to the slow lanes. And I was that guy. Number 1 lane, number 2 lane, weaving in and out of traffic, tailgating people, speeding with the old thought process, oh, I could go 7, 8, 9 miles per hour over the speed limit, and I'm just fine. But as a young driver, 19, 20, 21, I started racking up these tickets all the way into my late 20s as well. Had to spend a lot of money going to court, paying the fines, traffic school, 4-hour classes, 8-hour classes. And finally, I don't know, about 16, 17 years ago, I had to look in the mirror and determine the type of driver I wanted to be. Be a reckless driver putting people at risk, or did I value myself and did I value other people as well? So, most of us grew up, with the family members or the people we respected, the older people, driving over the speed limit. And a lot of times it's like, what they do will emulate, whether it's driving or any other types of behavior, But we really got to slow down, go with the speed limit or a little bit under. Now, here's what I do. When I'm on the freeway, the interstate, these days now, in my big fat V8 Tahoe, I'm in the right-hand lane. If it's a 70 mile per hour speed limit, I'm usually going 68, 69, or 70 miles per hour. I no longer speed. I haven't done that in well over 15 years, and I just chill. And I'm in that lane for 2 reasons. First reason, if there's an emergency with the vehicle, I can always pull over onto the shoulder or exit the very next exit. Or if there's an emergency, like a medical emergency with a family member, maybe one of my teens gets sick or my kid gets sick, I can always pull over onto the shoulder as well or exit the off-ramp. You're going to have to check with your state to see what the speed limit is on your freeway. But, here in Tennessee and in most states, it's like 70 miles per hour. Funny thing is we've nicknamed the number 1 lane the fast lane. What does that really even mean? Because whether it's the fast lane or the slow lane or the middle lanes are usually the number 2 and 3 middle lanes if there happen to be 4 lanes. And then the far right lane was nicknamed the slow lane. So it's fast lane, through lane, slow lane. But what does that even mean? Because the maximum speed is 70 miles per hour. Here in Tennessee, it's 45 for the minimum. Can you imagine somebody going 45 miles per hour, on the freeway here? But like I said, check with your state, find out what the maximum and the minimums are, and then just go in between them. However, if you're going to go under 70, just stay out of the fast lane. A lot of those people, they don't like it. If you're going 70, they think 70 is too slow, and then they want to go 75 in that fast lane. But the funny thing is a lot of them will tailgate you, right? You ever been in the fast lane? You're going 70, and somebody's tailgating you, wanting to go 75 or 77 or 80, and they're right up on your bumper. So you move over to the right, and then they go right past you, and they're going 75 or 80. But there's always somebody who comes up behind them going 81, 85, 90. And then now that person becomes a slowpoke, and the person following them is now upset because they want to go 85 or 90. And it's just a never-ending, cycle. So what everybody should do is just stay at 70 or a little bit below and stay out of the fast lane. I have no idea why we've nicknamed it the fast lane. Seriously, it's just people who have probably risen up over the decades and have nicknamed it and say, hey, you have to get out of the fast lane for all of us because we're on a mission. Well, the faster you go, the more damage the crash. And that's pretty gross when you really think about it. Here's a story for you out of Florida. This young man, woman, they're probably about 20 years old. They're speeding, getting up to speeds over 90 miles per hour at nighttime, slam into a minivan. It was a mom with, I think, her 3 kids and a cousin. The mom died and 2 of the kids died. And then the driver and his passenger died. 5 people died out of Florida, all because of speeding. People just wanting to test the limits. It's crazy. Here's another story for you. It took place in Maryland. A woman was driving with her husband, her brother, and then she had a daughter as well. 45 mile per hour speed limit on the street, and they were driving in a Jetta. It turns out 2 guys, one in a Camaro and one in a Volkswagen Passat, they didn't know each other, but they started getting their egos going out on the boulevard and decided to race each other, and they got up to speeds as high as 106 miles per hour. Well, both of them ended up hitting this woman's car, killing her husband and her brother and her little 4-year-old daughter. I mean, gosh, what are people thinking? You're sharing the roads with people. Everyone's just trying to get from A to B safely, and you have to go out there and drive like a bonehead. It's just purely selfish. Plus, a lot of people, when there's no accountability around, human nature is that we're going to do things if we don't think we're going to get caught. And that's what speeders primarily think. They may not be thinking about it, consciously, but subconsciously they're thinking, oh, cops are around, I'm just going to do what I want to do. Recently, teaching my traffic school class, I had this woman tell me, oh, I got targeted by the cops. I was in a speed trap. And I asked her, I said, well, where was this so-called speed trap? And she told me where it was. And I, very lovingly told her, I said, wait, these aren't speed traps. There's a speed limit sign right there. I know where that area is. So how is it a trap when you easily see the speed limit sign? She told me, well, yeah, the cops are hiding, and that's not really fair. Well, let me tell you what, I think there's this website on here, online, tells us what their definition of a speed trap is. A speed trap in any area in which one or more police officers intentionally hides in order to catch a driver speeding. And in the speed trap, the police officer may sit in a parked car next to a sharp turn, behind a billboard, in a low ditch, in a parking lot, or any other place that prevents the driver from seeing the police officer. Well, I'll tell you what, going around sharp curves, even over hills, maybe you should probably start slowing down anyways. So for a cop to be there, some accountability is obviously needed. I think it just comes down to the heart. How much do you care about yourself, and how much do you care about strangers out on the road? I know it's a little bit hard to deal with strangers that you're sharing the roads with, because a lot of them drive like bozos. Obviously, we're speaking about speeding right now, but a lot of them drive aggressively. They tailgate, they whip in and out of traffic without signaling, they cut you off. And heck, you might even be that person. So, you got to care about us out on the roads, you guys. You got to make the speedometer your best friend. If you're checking that speedometer every 5 seconds as part of your defensive driving, then you'll never get another speeding ticket, and you'll never see a day in traffic court for a speeding ticket. Now, you might get a ticket for reckless driving, drunk driving, distracted driving, or something like that, but you will never get a speeding ticket because you are making that speedometer your best friend. The website automotive-fleet.com says that going faster than surrounding traffic has even worse consequences. That driving at 80 miles per hour on a road where traffic is moving at 70, so that's just 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, your chances of a crash increase by 31%. And a crash with an injury increases by 49%. And a crash with a fatality is increased by 71%. Here's 6 common reasons people speed while driving. According to Harrison Graves, it's a personal injury attorney found online doing some of my research. One of them is being very familiar with the roads. If you drive the same route to and from work or wherever, a lot of people believe that they know every curve and intersection and back road like the back of their hand. But this ability to anticipate a commute route combined with muscle memory is all it takes, for a person to decide that they're going to speed and go faster. And then they end up crashing their car because they're just not on their game and they're driving passively. That's point number 1. Number 2, not enough time. A lot of people, they just don't manage their time well, and they're always running late. And when they fail to allow enough time to get to their destination, they try and make up for it by driving faster. And when they drive faster, they become an aggressive driver and they injure themselves or someone else, or even worse. Number 3, thrill seeking. These are mostly young male drivers in their 20s and possibly early 30s, according to the stats or their studies. Sometimes alcohol is consumed to enhance the thrill, and they are the motorists that pass you as though you were standing still, even though you're driving like 65 on the freeway. Social acceptance and belonging are central to the identity and self-image of young people, and owning and driving fast cars is a way of belonging in the crowd. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Number 4, road rage, aggressive driving. These are motorists who use their car to express their anger and frustration with other drivers, and their interaction with other aggressive drivers can lead to high-speed chases, somebody whipping out a gun, slamming into another car with their car, and I won't have part of this, get out of my way, you a-hole or whatever, Number 5, pure habit. Some motorists, they have no reason at all for speeding. They just simply do it out of habit. And when they get up onto the interstate, up onto the freeway, they just naturally, without thinking about it, move all the way over to the left-hand, fast lane, and they'll tailgate any car in front of them without even barely giving it a thought. And then number 6, overconfidence. All age groups can fall into this category. Even middle-aged drivers who say, I've been driving for 41 years, I know what I'm doing out there, and they're just overconfident on the road. And then they end up smashing into cars, trees, light poles, guardrails, medians, whatever it is. Here's a stat for you. In 1913, there were only 1.3 million cars registered in the United States. And it turned out there were 4,200 deaths that year. Well, now here we are at 2017 is the last stats that we have. So we're still trying to figure them out for 2018. But 2017, 273 million registered vehicles and over 40,000 deaths. Pretty crazy, huh? So for you parents out there, you have your kids, your infants in the car, whatever. You may not know this, but they're paying attention to your driving. You guys might be caught up in conversation, or they're on their phones or playing with their handheld video games or reading or whatever they're doing. But they see what you're doing and they emulate you. And it's a sociological disease. Driving habits are passed down from generation to generation. And subconsciously, your teens, when they get older, they're probably going to do the same things that they saw you do and not even think twice about it. Here's another story for you out of Indianapolis a few years ago. There was this truck driver driving his big, huge 18-wheeler, and he didn't slow down in a construction zone. He lied, saying he didn't think he was going faster than 35. He was actually going 65 in a 35. And he also lied, saying he was reaching down for his iced tea when he was suddenly cut off by another driver. It just simply wasn't true. He was going too fast. He may have reached for his iced tea. We don't know. But he was going too fast, and he slammed into a 29-year-old mom who had twin daughters, only 18 months old. And the story even says that he wasn't even remorseful when he was down at the police station. He was only concerned about his belongings and what hotel he was going to be dropped off at, and if he had his medications, if they were taken out of the truck, I guess. Absolutely horrible, man. What we have to do as drivers is just pay attention. Be an active driver, not a passive driver. And it's really hard to do because a lot of times you have the music playing, you have extra people in the vehicle with you, and there's chatter going on. And a lot of times the drivers are turning their head to the right to look at their passenger and say, And when you're passively driving, you don't even know that you might be either decreasing or increasing your speed. That's why it's so important to be checking your speedometer every 5 seconds. And like I said earlier, it'll keep you out of traffic school. It will keep you from getting a speeding ticket if you allow the speedometer to be your best friend. Like I mentioned before, your eyes should be scanning left to right, then checking your rearview mirror every 5 seconds, then looking down at your speedometer every 5 seconds. But then a big thing to add to that is that you need to be looking down the road 15 to 20 seconds, maybe even as far as 30 seconds down the road, so that you could see if there's ever a pileup, or you never know, a deer could be running out onto the interstate or out on the road, way down the road there, and cars start slamming on the brakes so that you have time to respond to the situation. Another story for you. 2 teens are driving down the road, 40 mile per hour speed limit. The driver, they're both girls, 18 years old, seniors at their high school. The driver decides she's going to start speeding, and she's going 70 miles per hour. loses control, veers across 2 lanes of traffic, and hits another car head on with a woman, I believe in her 50s, in the car. And she killed her girlfriend. And then she sustained serious injuries. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and she seriously injured the woman who she hit, who was in the hospital for a few weeks as well. This is just predetermined. I'm just going to go ahead and speed well over the speed limit, and then you kill your best friend. Horrible. What she did do is she actually drove her vehicle onto the shoulder first, the right side of the shoulder, and then she tried to get off of it, and she overcorrected. So something also happened in that car at that high speed, because why are you leaving the road and then veering onto the right shoulder and then coming back and overcorrecting? So there might have been some distracted driving involved as well. However, that high rate of speed, when you're driving distracted, it's even more difficult to get out of that and maintain control over the vehicle. About 6 weeks ago, I drove with this teen, this young guy, and he was pretty fun in the classroom portion of our driver's ed program. A little bit talkative, but he was engaged and he had a pretty good time in the class. And I actually taught his older siblings to drive, so I think he was the 3rd sibling in that family. Great family. So I get into the car with him, and it's a 2-hour driving lesson. And during those 2 hours, he habitually would go over the speed limit. 3, 4, 5, as high as 7 or 8 miles per hour over the speed limit. And I had to keep telling him, hey, dude, you got to slow down. You got to slow down. Slow down for me. Slow down for me. Just come on, slow down for me. And it ended up being, I think, well over 15 times. And he just didn't care. He just wanted to drive the way he drove. I even warned him a couple times. I said, you know what, we're just going to have to end your lesson. So I did. I ended up ending the lesson early. And then when I wrote his notes up for his family to read, I just completely went at him, saying he was putting lives at risk unnecessarily. He's putting my life at risk, not respecting the road and the speed and the damage that you could do when you crash into things or other people. And I even grounded him from booking a second lesson. And then I had a nice 10-minute chat with his mom by phone the next day. A week later, I get an email from him apologizing profusely. He had some time to reflect on his behavior in the car. Oh, there was also a time when he got up to the stop line to make a right-hand turn. And I said, make a complete stop here and then inch forward a little bit. Well, he stopped. He inched forward a little bit, and then he took off before I even said, hey, it's okay to go. And he took off, and he almost cut off another driver. Well, the driver didn't have to slam on his brakes, but he definitely had to slow down a little bit as this teen made the right-hand turn. And I said, dude, I didn't tell you to go. He said to me, he goes, I saw the opening, and I took it. I go, bro, you have to respect my teaching here, because I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want you to get hurt or anyone else. And he said, it worked out, did it not? And I think that was the last straw. So we took him back to his house, ended the lesson, grounded him from being able to book a lesson for a month. I get the email, him profusely apologizing a week later. And so about 6 weeks later, I drove on the second lesson with him, and he was a completely different driver. I mean, he was respectful. He dipped over the speed limit one time during the entire 2 hours. He was great to have. I drove with him his third and final lesson about 2 or 3 weeks later, and he was awesome. He was off and glorious, and he just needed some accountability. And that's the thing. We have to talk to our teenagers. We have to share with them our expectations and what we require of them if we're going to let them out on the road driving a 2,000-pound vehicle with 20 gallons of highly flammable liquid in it called gasoline, unless it's an electric car, obviously. Sorry about that. I got a little heated there. Just, I know the carnage out there. I show the videos. I teach on it. Anyways, so here's a stat for you. 41 million tickets are given each year to the American drivers. The math on that is about 112,000 tickets per day. Pretty nuts, huh? $6.2 trillion is paid out in total to all different entities because of car crashes. It's pretty crazy. Another stat for you: on average, over 2.3 million injuries in car crashes per year. I guess the question is do you or your teenager want to be one of those 2.3 million injuries each year out on U.S. roads? Anywhere maybe from a sprained pinky to a missing leg, or TBI, traumatic brain injury. That's why it is so important that you, as the parent, make sure that you have clear communication on what your expectations are for your teen when you hand them a set of keys. Speeding is just, like I mentioned earlier, it is just a national epidemic. Can you call it an epidemic, a pandemic, a driver-demic? A lot of teenagers, when there's no accountability around, they're going to want to look cool and speed up. They're also, not fully trained, not all of them anyways, in managing their time well. And so they're speeding from here to there, trying to get where they need to go on time. And also, they're watching you, like I said earlier. So model good driving behavior. It starts with you. You are the true hero in their situation, in their lives. I hope that what you hear today, you'll take to heart. I hope you'll implement some of the tips. I hope you'll understand that I'm not smacking you all over the head with these stats and these stories and stuff because I want to shame you whatsoever. I'm just trying to save your lives before you lose them. And it's all about being an active driver, not a passive driver. Scan to your left, right. Check your rearview mirror every 5 seconds. Like I said earlier, make the speedometer your best friend and looking down the road 15 to 20, even maybe 30 seconds down the road. I know how much you love your teenagers and all of your kids for that matter, and you want them to live long, healthy lives. You've invested a lot in them, time, money, energy, your hearts, everything, and you don't want to have to bear your teen. Let's do this a safe way, the right way, Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I am Spanky, the driving dude, with all things driving. Thanks for playing. And if you guys want to check us out on Twitter, Instagram, we are at Spanky's Driving. And then on Facebook, Spanky's Driving Academy. Thanks again. Rock on, rock steady.